Episode 5 Lego Castle of Anxiety. My first anxiety attack was textbook. Shortness of breath, lungs cramped, hives popping up on my arms and chest. I thought I was having a heart attack. And in the moment, it was terrifying, of course, but it passed. I can't even tell you what triggered it. I would like to say that this was the last of these harrowing experiences, but not so, not even by a long shot, actually. Since my late teens, I've experienced more anxiety attacks than I can count. And they're almost always the product of stockpiled anxiety tinder. A tense encounter at work, a bad date, a hypochondriac's health scare, and then the match. An otherwise unremarkable, less than happy moment that lights it all on fire. Bonfire of the Anxieties. Thank you, Tom Wolfe. The curious thing about these attacks is that no two of them are the same. They're actually somewhat unpredictable. And sure, in the early days, the physical symptoms were ones you'd expect. Then others crept up. Fainting, one time in the middle of a Starbucks, leaving me unconscious on the floor with display mugs and shatters all around me. Story for another time. Or a poor man's anaphylaxis triggered after sipping boba tea one Sunday afternoon. Fortunately, it was just itchy lungs and a tight throat. And then there was the smattering of styes and canker sores that always seemed to come in pairs. Now, if I didn't hate this fraught creativity, I'd be proud of it. My body has been so original in how it releases my anxious toxins. I've never quite known how it will express itself. Fitting, I suppose, for someone who calls himself a creative. When it comes to my writing, I never stick with one form, one structure for very long. I'm obsessed with being not just creative, but unique, innovative, original. Oh, I know. Someone with a background in biblical studies, like myself, should know better. What was written in Ecclesiastes, I think? There's no new thing under the sun. But there's me. I was new once. No one else like me. And so what I produce is unique, right? At least in that it comes from my singular brain and complex heart. Something in me, something beyond conscious thought, seems shackled to this idea of creativity and originality. I'm so tightly bound, in fact, that I can't express something biologically basic, i.e. anxiety attacks, without creative flair. Simple hives, tight chest, I can do better than that. But maybe, just maybe, I've pushed beyond the creative edge and landed in something borderline sensationalistic. To be original, I feel the need to be extra, more extra than the extra extras online already. And the originality? It's next leveling everything to avoid echoing voices already in the creative ether. Here's a case in point going back a few years. When I was in grad school for theology, I took a course at a Universalist Unitarian school. Now, most of the classes were with the Jesuits. Delightful and open-minded people, but they weren't particularly edgy. Not really. The UUs, however, they were far more about how divinity flows through the individual, which is then shared sans filter with others. So I tested the waters. In one of the more extreme cases, I wrote and presented a poem for a class that described in detail what I would do if I had to kill my own children. Now, this pulls from a book of the Book of Lamentations, a couple of verses in particular. So I wasn't making this up. It was based in the Bible. But as part of that poem, I described drinking my semen like wine as my wife boiled our young. Gruesome. This sort of extra creative in me, however, much as I would like to say that it's lost energy, has not. I still lust for it, and I still ask every time I spin up a poem, is this uniquely valuable enough to throw into the world? Does it need to be here? I may not make it gruesome, but what about it stands out? I recognize, without a small bit of irony, that almost every one of the poems I now write leans on an image or words from another creator, a line from a story I love, a painting I saw in a museum, a movie I recently watched. And when I realize that, I'm tempted to throw out my work and start all over again. There have even been moments when frustration over lack of originality has triggered some serious anxiety, bringing things full circle. And that, of course, fires the engine of creative symptomatizing. What new bumps, new scars or delusions, gasping, cratering, tightening can my body muster today? It's only been very, very recently that I have begun to toss out this need for conscious originality in every creation. And the expression of self seems to matter more. And sure, with my unique lens on the world, there will be something about what I express that is unique. Will it raise the hairs on the neck of the world? Will everyone stand up and applaud? Unlikely. But I don't really care so much anymore, because to me, the fulfillment is about the expression. A few days ago, for no real reason, I was recalling weekend afternoons at home as a kid. My brothers and I had tubs full of Lincoln logs and Legos. We'd pour them out onto the playroom floor and start building something, anything. For me, it was usually a castle or some sort of medieval masterpiece. My brothers, on the other hand, preferred planes and starships and sci-fi stuff and the like. Several hours into our building, I had created a castle scene extraordinaire, with a story to go with it. The king, returning from some noble quest, found his second-in-command had taken over the castle and turned his knights against him. But he had a loyal band of servants with him, and with this small coterie of right, they sailed into the breach to take back what was theirs. Very romantic. Lucky for the king, he had air support. My brothers, clearly following their own plot lines, though I didn't pay much attention, soared in on F-15s and bombed the crap out of my would-be Camelot. Legos everywhere. And this made me happy. And odd, I know, to spend so much time building something up only to have it destroyed. But each time I was able to tell a slightly different story with my creation and my brother's destruction. And while it all came crashing down, the building blocks were always there. I could always build something else. Who knew what the next creation, the next story would be? Poems, castles, anxiety attacks. It occurred to me far too late that they all depend on blocks you fit together. They're the same blocks everyone has, and I suppose in that way, nothing you use to build them feels wholly original. Nothing new under the sun. But if I'm the one building, and I'm a one-of-a-kind specimen, isn't there bound to be something unique in the combination? It's the beauty of individual expression, I suppose. It's always original. No extra needed. So maybe it's time I finally completely let go of the sensationalism. There's really no need for it. Sensationalistic creativity is as overplayed these days as conspiracy theories on Fox. So no more engineering. Just build and see what odd, mad, wild, Jeffified creation comes of it. It might just be that someone looks someday and says, vaguely inspired, "Damn, that's original. How on earth did you think of that? That's incredibly creative." Maybe. And even if they don't, I will have expressed myself.